I feel like, do you sing? You don't sing? Oh, I feel like you got a singing voice.
Yeah. Okay, we're recording. I got it started. We're started. We're ready. You always I like to just kind of dive into it and go for it. Okay. Let me turn that down a little bit. We are the Broadcast Braddahs, Justin Faisongo.
Joe Naholava'a.
Yeah, and we got our other brother, Josh Crayton, who, through a lot of resistance, agreed to do this.
Was there a lot of resistance?
Well, I think he's highly sought after, and we just happened to tap it first.
It's just not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it.
We're definitely stoked that Josh is here. And we get to talk story with Josh.
Yeah, and later we're going to bring Jane on, his wife, to support him, and we're going to talk about some dynamics of club life and paddling lifestyle and all that fun stuff. But first, I just want to get right to the meat and potatoes.
Oh, boy.
Okay? So Joe and I were having a little conversation about how to introduce you, right? Because when we did Jim Terrell, he's got all these medals and things and these accolades or whatever. And I think even Stevie Boy, when we did him and his brother Kevin, rest in love, that young man, which was unfortunate. Yeah. He sat right there actually. But yeah, so anyways, we're like, man, how can we really highlight somebody that has so much in the sport? And I think what I wanted to say was,
well, should I tell them what I said? And then you're like, no, it was way better.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in a good way. So, you always like to say that us paddlers, we're just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I always think of Josh as someone who's extraordinary in our paddling world. And
I agree with that 100%.
And Justin was like, no, that's I got something better. So I'm interested to
I haven't known you guys a long time, right? You guys have been in this community a lot longer than I have. But I will say this, that my initial I'm just going to say is that you are a world-class sportsman. You are one of the best, calmest guys I've ever seen, even in the score stuff, which, I know you did temporarily for a little while. But I was so impressed by how you handled situations and how you were hands-on with all the small clubs. And, the big clubs got a lot of their stuff mostly figured out. Their logistics figured out. Their labor's figured out, all that kind of stuff. But small clubs struggle, and having a race director at that time was really, really beneficial to a lot of small clubs who are trying to find their way. And, there were some new clubs that popped up along that time, which I know you were instrumental in helping get that done too. So I just want to commend you. I haven't been in a canoe with you ever. I'm sure by your demeanor that you were probably really fun to paddle with. You're probably very calm, precise, I imagine. I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, until I'm not.
Yeah.
and he definitely coaches us to be that way.
Right.
He leads by example. So
yeah, but I think all the years spent in this sport, I think you're deserving of a title that we had never called anybody. So, World Class Steersman for sure. World Class Sportsman.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I really deserve all of that, but I certainly appreciate it. So.
Yeah. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So super excited to have you, and I want to get right into some meat and potatoes. I want to talk about the last couple big events, national events that you were involved with.
Sure.
Before we get to the history of how you started paddling and all that stuff, because I'm sure you've told that story a bunch of times, but we're trying to hook the audience. We're going to try this a little differently. Normally we start at the beginning and go to the end, but we're going to do this. We're going to mix it up a little bit.
Start at the end, then we'll go back to the beginning.
Go back. Yeah, okay.
I like it.
So recently you were in Tahiti helping coach the Dana women, or the USA women's team that was in Samoa, which we'll get to.
Yep.
But how was your experience in Tahiti?
Well, so this is my third time going to Tahiti. I went when I was 18. Went again in 2017 when Jane and I celebrated our 20th anniversary, and then went again this year as a equipment manager for the Dana Outrigger women's team.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. It's the closest thing to the Tour de France that we have in our outrigger world. So it's bigger, it's brighter, it's more vibrant. It's pretty exciting. What made this year different was that they had the women and the juniors and the 70-plus men race multiple days.
Right.
So it was a stage race.
Because normally the women only race one day, right?
Correct. They only usually race the shortest leg or the second day. So,
And is that because of the availability of equipment, or?
I think it's really just because of the culture in Tahiti.
Okay.
So, the race itself started off as, Habaki Nui was going to be what put Tahiti back on par. They felt like they had kind of slipped behind Hawaii and some of the rest of the world. So it was kind of the brainchild of, hey, we're going to try and take what at the time, as the Molokai Hoi and kind of the undisputed race, and we're going to take it to another level. And so that's really what it is. 3 days of racing. You can use up to 12 men, but iron each day. And what happened was the women from Dana qualified for the IVF spot for Samoa, and that was their goal. That's what they were focusing on. In 2017, they got third place. In 2019, I'm not even sure they placed. They weren't even on the podium. And so this year, they really wanted to make sure that that was something that they could do well in. So as part of their training regiment, they went up to the gorge race, and they raced in Matahina because they were training for Samoa, and they ended up setting the course record. And so shortly thereafter, they were invited by Joey from Ari World Va'a to come down to Tahiti. And what I didn't know until I was down there was Joey and Ari they sponsor Iolani, the women's team down there. And so they really wanted to bring somebody down there to race them and to try and make the women's event prestigious.
Right.
And so he approached Brandy about, hey, come on down. And she's like, we can't do that. I mean, we all work. We've blown all our vacation,
Right.
On everything else.
Right.
We've got families. We've got other priorities. We can't do that. And he's like, no, come on. What would it take? Maybe I can help you with airfare. Maybe I can do some of these other things. And so Brandy talked to me about it. And I'm like, well, it's different down there. It's not going to be the same as what you're used to. There's just a lot to it. So she told Joey, look, I'm not going unless I can bring Josh to make sure our boats get rigged right. Yeah. And an alternate. And so we ended up going down there. It was crazy. We showed up to Raiatea, and we're just kind of the way things worked out. We got there right about the time when they wanted to close the rigging. And so myself and the alternate Ral kind of snuck in and started rigging as fast as we could.
Bring your toolbox.
Yeah, I had a bag that was
all the stuff.
Goat casket.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I had one of it, just about everything you could imagine. So it's dark. I had a headlamp on. Ral went over, and they in Tahiti. It's funny what's important to them. So if you are over the line, then it's like a 1 minute penalty. But if you put your stickers on wrong on the canoe, it's a 20-minute penalty.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah. So you have to have all the events stickers on there. So that was like the biggest thing.
And certain,
do they send you
they give you a piece of paper and they say this is where they go, and it's a 20-minute penalty if you don't put them on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, I just thought, should we make like a broadcast, like a mandatory broadcast Braddahs stickers for the Va'a California?
We definitely should.
All the like, hey, everyone has to put this.
And if you don't put it in the right spot, it's a 5-minute penalty.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's so wild. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Actually, I can believe it. I can believe it.
So one of the most impressive things was that Ral was able to convince the race officials to give us those stickers because we were after, and then we had to call and find a taxi to bring the women over to put wristbands on because they had to install the 6 wristbands on the 6 paddlers that were racing the next day, and we'd missed all of that, right? So we got that worked out, and we made a decision. Okay, we're going to go we'll sleep on our catamaran tonight and figure out, kind of the food stuff. And then we'll come early tomorrow, on Wednesday for the first day of the race, and we'll float the boat and we'll get it rigged properly. So we get there in the morning and there's officials everywhere and everybody's, slowly showing up and this and that. And we kept asking, so when can we put the boat in the water? And they're like, you can't put the boat in the water. So all of a sudden it was like, all right, hey, Rel, I need you to pick up the canoe and I need you to hold it like this. I went back and I did kind of a look at the AMA and the Yakuza and kind of where it was at. And I said, all right, we need a 1/2 inch shim in the back left-hand side. She's like, how do you know that? I go, don't worry about it.
Just do it. Yeah.
So we
wild.
And then it was like, hey, tie this thing down, because the way the course was, it kind of started inside of the lagoon.
In the lagoon, yeah.
It went out to an island, made a left turn, made another left turn, and then they surfed down, and it was bombing. It was probably 15 to 20 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
It was kind of that, from the left to the right. So, it was pretty technical.
So on that, just because I'm curious to know, because I hear different stories about, we talk about water conditions based on us in Hawaii, and I hear Tahiti has a lot of current and a lot of water moving. And I mean, how compared to what you've seen in Hawaii, I mean, what did you see?
Well, on that day, we were only inside the lagoon.
Okay.
So I didn't really get outside. I was watching the men who were racing from Taha across a big-ass channel and to Raiatea, and then kind of finishing for the second half of what the women were doing. The women and the juniors and the 70 men were actually doing, I think it was a 16-mile course, 24 kilometers. Yeah. I think. And actually, no. The first day was shorter. It was 10. The second day was 16 miles. But that first day, 15 kilometers, we really couldn't see the conditions from the beach. From what I understand, when they got outside, it was pretty uncomfortable. And that's actually where the gap happened. So the Dana women that day actually ended up losing almost 3 minutes to Iolani, and it was all from the time that they exited
open water.
Yeah, and
they got third.
Yeah, they got third on that first day, and then the team Tava was second, and the Dana ladies were I think Tava was about 1 minute and 15 seconds back, and then Dana was about 2.5 minutes back.
So still a race.
Yeah,
right after day one.
Yep. So, and really, it was, first time doing the race, so hindsight's 20/20. But the eye opener was that our women are really good at what they do well, and in the conditions that they don't necessarily race in or practice in, because we don't have a lot of those conditions in California. We have to go find them. That was something that was a struggle.
Yeah.
When it sounds like there was a race before the race, right? The race of logistics.
Right.
That's a lot of moving parts, right?
Well, and we'd never seen the boat before.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was fortunate that we had had so much training in the Matahinas for Samoa.
Right.
And that was part of the reason that I was selected to go down there and asked to go down there was because at all of the IVF races like Samoa, myself and I recruit a couple of guys, we make sure that all of the canoes for the team from USA or California, whoever we're representing, are all rigged the same way and ready to go. And so, just having that confidence of what the rigging should look like, having done it for an entire week.
Right.
That was really my only saving grace, is that I'd looked at it, the canoe sitting there that many times, and even though the rigging, the shims were slightly different from what we did in Samoa, they were close enough.
Yeah.
And the girls, as soon as they got in the boat, they looked back at me and they said, "This is perfect. This will work." And we didn't change it for 2 days.
For the second leg, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't touch it.
Very cool. How'd they do on the second leg?
They did much better, but still, started off in windy conditions, kind of a crosswind, but inside the bay. And again, there's some world class teams that are there. Good teams from Hawaii, good teams from Australia, good teams from all over. And so they actually had a bit of a good fight off of the start line. Iolani kind of separated from the pack, but there was a pack of 3 or 4 canoes, and as they were dicing around the coral heads and everything like that, some of what they learned was, hey, those girls down there, they'll push you into
they'll steer you right into it,
into immovable objects and things like that. So,
the men do that to each other too.
Yeah, so I talked a lot with Cora about leverage and angles, and hey, when you can let a boat bump into you, and that's fine, and when you're in control and when they're in control, and to just be really mindful of it. So she did fantastic in all of that.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
So logistically, you guys went race 1 and then race 2, and the canoe. Do you have to move the canoe after that, or?
Yeah, so we went from Raiatea to Taha, and so the first day we finished at the same place where over 200 men's teams were finished.
Right.
And so, that was we got there before them and kind of put the canoes off to one side, and then when they showed up, they just filled up the entire place. So, it was.
200 men's teams?
Yeah, 200.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. How do you find your canoe? Especially if they're all stickered the same, right? They all got to reach the same regulation, right? It's like,
yeah, no,
how do you?
It's crazy.
Where's Waldo?
Right.
And I know the men race with weight restriction. Did they weigh the women's canoes too?
They do. I think they're 150 kilograms.
Oh, so same as the men.
Yeah, 300.
Oh my gosh.
330 pounds.
So they paddle the same weight, same canoe.
Yeah.
They have the same rules basically.
Yeah. So it's the and I would say that the Matahina was 90% of the canoes, maybe 95% of the canoes that were there.
Yeah.
It's kind of sort of like the accepted class. So it's, for all intents and purposes, it's really close to a kind of a one boat race.
Yeah. I know Tahiti just recently started, I don't know if they were talking about it, but I heard that they are allowing foot braces. Did you guys have foot braces in your canoe?
No foot braces.
Okay. None of the men either?
Didn't inspect too many of the canoes.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean,
because I know they were sending a bunch down there to fit them.
Don't know. They the canoe we had did have a Venturi system.
Right. I think most of them do now.
Yeah. So so that's something that we've experimented with here in California, but we've kind of abandoned because we've got the electric pumps.
Yeah. Well, when I first started ordering the Matahinas, I said this a bunch of times. I ordered it specifically without the Venturi because we have so much silt in the water here.
Yeah.
They just start getting gummed up, and you just can't get them closed right. And if someone's not paying attention, next thing you know, you're sinking a canoe.
Right.
Yeah. So we just auto bail.
Yeah. Just turn on.
Yeah. Flip on the switch.
Yep. So they had that. You said that they were in a pack of 3 to 4 other crews.
Yeah.
And from what it sounds like, they ended up coming in second overall that day, right?
So the Iolani team was actually a very good team.
Yeah.
It was some of the girls that had come here to Catalina, but it was some that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And then the team that was really interesting was Teva. That was a team of really young girls. So
cool.
Yeah, they all looked like they were 16 to early 20s. They had one or two Titas in there, but most of them were a little bit older.
Yeah.
And a little bit younger. And they just that was one of the things that was striking, is that here they are ahead of the Dana women who've definitely established themselves.
Well, Teva came a couple years and won the channel. I think 3 years they came over and won the Catalina, right?
Yeah,
I think Alex had brought him, or Phi had brought him in, and Alex hosted him and did that whole deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and the I'm trying to remember the guy. It's a pretty famous stand-up paddler and V1 paddler is their coach. So,
George Cronstead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and you can really see that the women's teams that are there. There's not as many of them. I mean, in California and Hawaii, we're sort of used to a good number of
Yeah.
the women's teams and the co-ed teams, being about the same as the men, and to have a much, I think it was 20 women's teams
Okay.
Yeah.
total.
So when you said culture, so it's just not a lot of women. There's not a lot of women's teams that paddle, or women. It doesn't sound like a lot of women paddle in Tahiti. Is that what?
That's my
your takeaway?
impression.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Going to a race like this, that's kind of the, and the other thing too is that it was in November, which in Tahiti
Okay.
is late spring, early
Right.
summer.
Mhm.
So I don't know if they were in
Yeah.
school, or what was going on, or if
Yeah,
there's
okay.
any issues like that. My talking to the family that we stayed with when we stayed in Papeete, they were saying that most of the girls who paddle in Tahiti do it when kind of from 10 or 12 years old till about 16. But after 16, there's a really tremendous drop off as they go start families,
Right.
go to school, or
Yeah,
that
okay.
kind of thing. And there's not a lot of women that are, but there's a lot of men who are paddling, and there's a lot of moms who take
Yeah,
their sons
yeah, yeah.
paddling,
Okay.
but there's not a lot of women who are competing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So the Dana women got second. So what happens now? Are they coming back? Are they fired up? Like what's the story now for them?
Well, we didn't really talk about that.
Okay. Yeah.
We were just, the plan all along was Samoa and Catalina.
Right.
I see.
And so, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, this was
It wasn't their primary.
it was an
race.
extra, right?
Mhm.
And it was really kind of a reconnaissance mission from the perspective of like, didn't know what to expect, didn't know what the conditions were going to
Yeah.
be. The logistics, are, probably 2 or 3 times what going to Molokai
Sure.
is about.
And that
Or-
says a lot.
right.
Yeah.
So it's just, you really got to have a lot of relationships and an investment, and
This kind of sounds like Rocky. Remember, like Rocky is like already won the world champs, right? Like, why do you have to go fight the Russian guy?
Yeah. Mhm.
And then he got his ass kicked by the Russian guy. And I'm not saying that Dana got their ass, but you know what I mean. It's like you're already the world champ. It's like no, don't take that fight. And I still think it was a great experience for them. Which is really cool.
yeah, well,
and there's a lot of takeaways.
It's hard to say, right? Like,
Yeah.
Tahiti made a lot of sense. Hapaki Nui made a lot of sense this year because there wasn't a Molokai.
Right.
Very good point.
Molokai was probably not on the women's radar anyway.
Yeah.
They would have gone and paddled. Some of them would have gone and paddled with teams in Hawaii, but I don't think they would have gone as a team.
As their team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a learning curve to being successful in a race like in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
like Molokai or some of the other ones. And so we'll see. I don't know what the next step is for them.
Yeah.
So they were fantastic, great, incredible group of world class women. I think they've got some changes happening just in terms of like, I know Mo's husband is the lead physician at the Oceanside Camp Pendleton base, and he's being restationed next summer.
Oh, so they're
Oh.
on.
Well, so that's a little bit of a change.
Yeah.
Because she went from Hawaii to here, right, or something like
Right.
that, right?
So,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
that'll be her next change.
Okay.
She's a big part of what they're all about.
Yeah.
But I have tremendous faith that they've got a really strong culture. They're gonna be really good, and
Yeah.
it feels to me that they've conquered a lot of the things that they want to conquer here. So now it's just a matter of recalibrating, and taking on that.
What's the next
challenge.
goal? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to have to be a change because, they're super good at paddling at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. They're going to have to learn how to paddle
Conditions.
at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the
Yep.
afternoon when it's not comfortable.
Yep.
And we'll see.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, let's segue into Samoa a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Flying from Tahiti to Samoa.
yeah, we're going to go we're going back in time a little bit here.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Nice.
So part of what you brought up too about you being on the beach all day and rigging and unrigging and doing all that stuff.
Equipment manager
is part of the sportsman thing that plays in mind for me, right? You're there helping all the time. I'm sure you probably helped other countries with their stuff too, you know.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah, allegedly, yeah.
So they say.
But Samoa. So you guys took how many teams down there?
It's a good question. I think we filled almost every division as Team USA,
Mm-hmm.
and I think California was responsible for, at least 3/4 of that.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit. Southern California was at least 3/4
Yeah.
of that.
So besides being equipment manager, you actually got to race too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And your experience doing that?
It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very unexpected.
Yeah.
It was, not what I was planning kind of coming into this year. I actually thought last summer for me was going to be, it wasn't going to be. It was dedicated to some significant changes happening in my family. My son Garrett graduated from Drexel University. My daughter Heather graduated from welding school here in Santa Ana. We spent a good portion of the summer helping them get ready for that next chapter in their lives. And so I actually only raced 2 of the Scora races last year.
Oh, you did? That was it, just 2?
Just 2.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, me too, actually.
yeah. So the Samoa campaign for me started in February when I got a phone call from Brandy saying, "Hey, we're gonna pick an open team and a 50s team, and I want your help." I said, "All right, well, tell me what your plan is." And they had a good plan. So it started off with a time trial. I think it was 3 or 3.5 miles, and then it went right into seat racing. So I brought my little motorboat out, and put their coaches and cameras, and they ended up doing after that 3-mile time trial, roughly 20 miles of seat racing on Saturday, followed by cuts Saturday nights, and then 20 more miles of seat racing, and came out of it saying, "Hey, we've got, here's our 2 crews that are going." And then from there, the Samoa campaign was actually being led by Lindsay Richmond from Marina Del Rey and Micah from NAC. And so both of them reached out to me and said, "Hey, we know you've done this before. Can you help?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'd love to help."
Put objective eyes on it.
Yeah. So, started off coming down and just thinking I was going to do the same thing, which was, help out in the canoes and help switch people back and forth, and kind of just try and get everybody paddling, from a similar perspective. Just try to really keep it simple and say, "Hey, these are the things that we're trying to do." And as time went on, I found myself jumping in the canoes because we'd be missing people.
Right.
And
hard to get everybody together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And as time went on, we ended up with a 50s crew, and it was primarily the Marina Del Rey crew. It's kind of their open crew. So it's 4 guys from there. It was some dude from New Zealand called Saul.
Yeah. Kiwi Crusher.
There you go. And Saul and I paddled together at the same race down in Australia in 2019, so I had a lot of familiarity with him. And it was one of those situations where I didn't want to overpromise because I was going to be traveling a lot for work and even more for family. But for whatever reason, it was a group of guys that just kind of fit together. As hard as you try, sometimes you got all the best intentions and it doesn't work. And sometimes when you don't try very hard, it just kind of falls together. And that's one of those situations that really, we just ended up with a bunch of guys that fit into the right seats and we kind of fit together.
Yeah.
And, we could see it because, in a lot of the practices, we were the team that was pushing the open crew. Sometimes,
Oh yeah.
Sometimes the open crew was
Yeah.
chasing us, and it certainly wasn't a team full of guys that had resumes, but it was a team full of guys that I think was also interesting. We're all kind of in our 50s, and so we're at a point in our lives where maybe we're not holding on as tight, and so there was a lot more just kind of just like-mindedness, I think.
Yeah.
So again, I can't really put my finger on it, but it was a pretty good experience. And, one of the most humbling things was, we were doing practices, and after practices we'd go out and we'd have breakfast, and we ended up at that Mexican place on 17th Street, and somebody across the table from me started feeding me skinny margaritas.
Oh, is this Playa Mesa?
Yeah. No, it was El Matador.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Yeah. Okay.
And next thing I know, it's like, all right, hey, we really, really, really need you to go. And I'm like, I can't go. No,
Yeah.
we need you to go. Well, look, I got all these other things. Yeah, that's great. You really need to go.
Here's another margarita.
And when Lindsay said, hey, look, I really want to give my guys an opportunity to compete at this highest level. I think you give them a chance to do something that I can't do. It was humbling. Mm-hmm. It was really it's a lot of responsibility, and it was very, very motivating too. It was like, all right, hey, let's go see if we can, create an opportunity for guys to compete at a level that, they haven't before. Mm-hmm. And, that's one of the things that, my favorite thing to do is to take a bunch of ordinary people, and every once in a while, do something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that's, I've been saying it for years, but that's kind of the mantra, right? Mm-hmm. And, in between those moments of glory, there's an awful lot of hard work. But
I think this is a good time to look at the clip, right?
I was going to say, speaking of moments, let's
check this
take
out.
Let's check out the
because you mentioned positioning and strategy and all that, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, especially when he was talking about how Cora, they're planning. I was like, yeah, that sounds a lot.
I
like
just
how
want to
Josh
say,
steers.
I want to say when I was watching this part, I was screaming at the TV. It was like the best thing I've ever seen. So walk us through this. We're talking about, this is Team Hawaii right here.
All right.
And you guys, this is on the first lap. You guys coming out of the harbor were behind Hawaii. I think you guys were I think Tahiti had got fumbled up in the turn. I don't know what happened with them. But you guys downhill did the impossible, I think.
Nah.
Yes.
Well, so the way the race worked, right, is we, the way they set up the course is they had a straight, they had two buoys that were the start line. And the very first leg was to the right. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it, the teams that were on the right-hand side or closest to the right-hand side of the boat had a completely unfair start.
Oh, I see.
And so when we lined up, there was a big fight for who was going to be in that position. Mm-hmm. And Tahiti actually got stuck inside. Okay. And they had to wait till people to clear to start the race. Okay. So they kind of started off a little bit with the things behind them.
Yeah.
As we came out, I had actually raced the course the night before with the 40s crew, so I had a pretty good idea of where I can go, and so and I had a feeling it was going to be pretty rough, but it was the waves coming into our face were even bigger than I thought.
Right.
So we made the right hand turn and started heading up.
You guys were 2 seats airborne on the way uphill.
Yeah.
It was big. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really had to kind of hold our composure together and bail water quite a bit and to get up to the two buoy turn. As we got up to the two buoy turn, I could see that the Hawaii guys had put quite a bit on us. They probably had 6 or 7 boat lengths on us at that point.
Yeah.
But John made what I consider to be he made a mistake where he didn't hit the turn too well that first turn, and it made him go pretty wide. Mm-hmm. And so that gave me an opportunity.
Jim Fody?
Yeah. Or John, okay. Sorry, Jim Fody. Yeah. John I raced the night before. So so coming around that, it was, hey, get the boat empty as much as we could. Mm-hmm. And then coming down, what I'd witnessed the night before was that the teams that went to the left and got a little bit closer to the breakwater, the waves would rebound off that breakwater, and then that's where the really, really fast good waves were going to the
Carries
to
more.
the turn. So what you're looking at here is just as we're kind of coming into that area where the waves are not just coming from behind us, but they're also
you see it
rebounding a
from
little
the-
bit.
Yeah.
And so here we're, hey, get the water out.
Yeah, because 4 is bailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And then, all right, here we go again. And as soon as we would get the boat speed up, it was, think about. So, so one of the things about this race was it was extremely hot and humid. And so it was actually more difficult going this direction downwind.
Right.
Because you're going
got
about
no
the same
back.
speed
Right.
as the wind.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it was super important to make sure that, hey, you guys, drink,
Yeah.
don't try and catch every bump.
Right.
Yeah.
Really.
It was so amazing though to watch, like you guys come into the screen like this because they were
no.
talking about Hawaii a little bit, and then Kingy's talking about Tahiti. Then all of a sudden, you see the front of your canoe coming, and I was like, "Holy shit! Holy shit!" I was screaming at the TV. It was so awesome.
Did you overlap?
You had we're talking about the
That was like a
press,
thing,
you
right?
press the line,
Overlap.
right? Yeah.
Well, so the one thing about racing Jim Fody is that he and I have been racing against each other for, I kid you not, like 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, he was pretty comfortable with what I was going to do, and I was pretty comfortable. I could kind of see, if I was going to lose it, he was going to give me room and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just looking at this little clip, you guys have a little bit more turnover, right? Like you guys are dancing on it more. Where they're kind of, they look like
Yeah.
they're slugging it, huh? It's hot, like you mentioned. But
Yeah, and again, I think that's just the nature of the crew. We had a crew
Yeah.
that was not a big overpowering crew.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a crew
A
that,
lot of finesse and technique and
fitness.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, look
there's
at their-
tremendous fitness, right?
Yep.
So, and what we really kind of try to talk about was balance and getting the boat light, keeping it light,
Yeah.
not instead of really trying to just grind.
I'll edit this clip into the
Yeah.
yeah. So
Great
because I
clip.
won't see a lot of it on the thing, but enough of it.
Super dynamic water, but yeah,
awesome
you could
though,
see it
man.
coming on my side.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I was so stoked.
Yeah. So, again, it was one of those things. And part of the reason that we were successful was that we prepared. And so for the month of July, I was traveling. But usually on Thursday, I could arrange to fly into LAX. And so wherever I was at, I would try and get to LAX by 4 o'clock or 4:30. There was a Matahina that we were borrowing. It was in Marina Del Rey. So I would show up, again, push Lindsay out of his seat, take the boys out, and then we would just go spend 2 hours
Working in the surf.
in the rough, confused rebounds off of the wall out there.
Yeah, they would do downwinders from Marina to Redondo. Like we would see them, we'd be practicing out there, and
You
then
guys would
they'd be here.
slide
Was
in,
it like a purple Matahina, right?
I think it was gray.
Gray, okay.
It was the gray one.
Okay.
So,
But yeah, it was, yeah.
But again, just and it was one of those things where, everybody just tried to get to that practice. So I made an effort to get there, and it just kind of worked for everybody where we were at. Right. So sometimes, those things don't work.
Yeah.
Schedules are misaligned or priorities are misaligned or egos are in the way or this or that. And this was a group that, and the message, the kind of that I wanted to bring to the crew, they were very receptive to it. I was very eager to make sure that they all kind of knew what their role was and they excelled at their role, and they did.
Yeah.
So Saul was the connector. He was the transmission. He was the guy that connected that whole boat together.
That's cool.
We had Earl, who is Marina's men's coach, and he wanted to be the captain. So I would communicate to him. He would communicate to the crew. We had a couple of really fit guys in there that just went for it. And so all things considered, it was a tremendous experience.
Yeah. That's very cool. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
So, okay. I mean, we're 40 minutes in, and we're gonna push this thing along here because we got a lot still to talk about. I want to talk about 404 Simple Mobile and the Olomouc. So that was 12 and 13, correct? 2012, 2013, or
I had to go back and look at it. So,
Yeah.
Well, before let's pull up. Josh brought some
Oh,
props.
yeah. Let's
so
see
we
this.
just spoke about Samoa, right? That was
Yep.
that was the Samoa.
that was the jerseys for Samoa.
Yep. So, and I actually traded my jersey, so I had to go buy a new one. Yeah. So the Team USA for Samoa.
That's cool.
Nice.
And yeah, when you told me, hey, you wanted to talk to me about this stuff, I was like, okay, I got to go back and like figure out where I was at. So this is the first time we did Olomouc, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one that was started in Kahului Harbor over in Maui. Went around the corner. We were supposed to go to what is the beach there? Hemmons Beach or something, but it was too rough. It was too.
Oh, is this
too
on
big.
Maui?
On Maui.
Oh, okay.
So we went around to Lahaina and ended up putting our canoes in front of somebody's beautiful hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
and it was cool. It was it was probably year 3 or year 4 of what we call the unlimited movement.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so it was really kind of the brainchild of a guy named Seth, who's the money guy behind. It used to be Red Bull, but it started off as like Livestrong,
Mellow Johnny and-
Mellow
Mellow
Johnny and
Johnny,
those
yeah.
guys.
Mhm.
And it was this idea of why are we using canoes that are fishing canoes? Why why are we having any of these breakthroughs? Why don't we have something that's unlimited? So
We love this topic, by the way. This
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
so,
we always
so
get into it.
he ended up commissioning the guys that did the America's Cup boats for a boat design, and then that got the competition going with Kaimanu, and so
okay.
Luke and Keizo and Johnny
Yeah, yeah.
kind of came up with their ideas of what an unlimited boat would look like, and that it was about 5 years in there of just lots and lots of anything goes,
Totally,
any sort of creativity.
Yeah, R&D work and a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that really captured everybody's imagination was the Pa'a Ieno and the 6 guys that were racing, and I think that was like 2008, 2009,
Yeah, 7, 8, yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the challenge of, hey, we're going to do an iron. We're just gonna we're gonna go, and that they were nuking conditions too.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
remember seeing the videos on that.
right.
Wild.
So Lanakila, we didn't get involved in that race until I think the third year, and the Pa'a.
Anal? Okay.
Yeah, and when we did, we ended up using Bradley Lightning, and we went from Maui to Kanakakai, and then
Nice.
they moved the canoes down to Fort or to the Mocking Horse.
Mocking Horse Beach. Oh,
and then you go,
Okay.
yeah, and then you go across, and then we did and so that was, we didn't do very well as Lanakila, but we brought a lot of guys, and we made sure that we had like, I think 12 guys that we had that experienced it, and it really set the stage for the next year. That's when they did this race. It was a kind of an invitation that was thrown out by the Big Island guys, and Seth was the one that was kind of behind the money behind it, and he really tried to do it first class. So we did that first leg, and then we had a big dinner reception at a really nice hotel.
Wow.
On Maui. I think it was the Ritz-Carlton or something like that. And then the second day, and it was windy, and it was rain squalls. And so where we started, we actually didn't start at Kailui Harbor. We actually started up at the where you start the
For the Pailolo race, right?
exactly.
The actual what beach is that?
So as we went out,
Yeah.
Jaws is, the famous surf is just to the right, and it's going off. And, like we go out and we start this race, and we're a bunch of, yahoos from, actually we had 2 crews from California. And
Ben, speaking of Ben McNeil, right? He was steering the other crew,
he was
right?
steering the
Yeah.
other crew.
Yeah.
And we had
He still wears that jersey, by the way.
yeah, well, I think all the guys, I know Brent Campbell still wears.
Yeah.
And Brent was sitting in front of me in seat 5. It was just a bunch of young guys from California, me and Danny, and I think Dave Kruger was in that boat, and Steve Sinkus was in that boat. I can't remember who was all in there, but the team we ended up racing in that first leg
Will was on there too, right?
Yeah, there was the Maui guys, and so here we are in Maui racing, what we considered to be trying to remember what.
Oh, they were Primo.
Yeah,
Primo,
team,
right?
Team
Yeah,
Primo. It was before they were called Primo, but it was all the Primo guys. And Jimmy Austin was part of that group and everything else. And we were actually ahead of them for all the way to these giant rock structure type things. And as we came to those rocks and made a left turn, the conditions changed. We started going downhill. We had our Venturi open, and the boat filled up with water instead of empty.
Draining it out, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of like our first experience with hey, we don't know how these Venturis work.
Right.
We know that's not right. And so we ended up, getting second place in that, but doing really well and kind of establishing ourselves. The second day, we changed out 3 of the guys. So me and Danny and I think Ross were out. Brent Campbell was steering, and went from Maui to Molokai, finished at Kaunakakai. And because there was this crazy storm going through, when they first started the race, it was kind of a tailwind, and then it turned into this crazy, crazy headwind. And it's never a headwind, right? It's always
going across. Yeah.
And Brent made some decision that Danny and I were losing our minds about, where he went right and he went inside. Out by it, when you get to Molokai, inside all of the reefs. And so our competition's out to the left, and they're battling each other, and there's this amazing battle going on. And Brent's inside where there's no wind at all, and passing everybody. And we're in this motorboat, and I'm standing on the front of it telling the captain, coral head,
Oh,
coral
no,
head.
that's shallow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. But we ended up putting 3 minutes on the whole field.
Jeez.
It was amazing, and right as we finished and this and that, it got completely still. We're right in the middle of the eye of the storm, and then the opposite side of the hurricane comes through.
Yeah.
So I think that was Saturday. We were supposed to race again on Sunday, and so we're there. We're in our house. And we're like, okay, we're gonna go race tomorrow, and we're kind of getting ourselves. And we get this phone call from Kavika and he goes, "Hey, the Coast Guard shut down the channel. Nobody can race."
Yeah. Because you guys are supposed to race the Kaiwi Channel.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was the final leg.
We'd loaded our canoes on, and they were all on trailers, and they were going to take them down to Mocking Horse and all of this other stuff. And so the guys on my team are first thing was get to the grocery store now.
Right.
They're going to shut the grocery store.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bought all the beer that they had in Kaunakakai, came back and just had the best party on. We'd won a leg, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
meanwhile, I got to call my wife, and conversation went something along the lines of, "Honey, I'm stranded on a desert island.
Yep.
Gonna have to figure out how to change our plane flights because they're not letting us race tomorrow." So a bunch of us were flying out Sunday or Monday, Sunday night or Monday. So we had to do all of that. So so basically, all the prize money that we'd won that day went into changing airfare and
getting everybody home. Yeah.
And
Such a good backstory. Jeez. Yeah.
Well, we had enough beer bottles that we were able to, when Brent passed out, we were able to surround his entire body. We did
make the murder scene.
Yeah, the murder scene outline with beer bottles.
That's so funny.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So the next day we actually went and we were surfing the canoes and just having fun, and that was. That was the mentality, is hey, as serious as all of this is, we're still a bunch of guys that just love to paddle and love to have fun.
Yeah.
So we were doing runs from Kamalo Buoy down to Kanakakai.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Cool.
And then, the day that everybody asked me about is the third day, and ended up being on a Monday. And that's when we were all at Mocking Horse. And it was fun because we basically said, all right, we're going to start this race early. So everybody be there at 6, and we're going to launch.
Yeah.
And the story goes that the race director got a phone call that the Coast Guard said, no,
We're still closed.
it's
Yeah.
still closed.
Yeah.
You can't go. And the race had already gone.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean it was 20 plus out in the channel, big wind. I went through 3 or 4 steering paddles. It was crazy.
Amazing.
I mean, we had George Wilson and Kealaka'i, this other guy, on one of our episodes, we're talking about like Olamau and the Unlimited, the evolution of it, and you know, I brought up that YouTube video of you guys. I don't know who that was that documented it, but I really enjoyed that video.
Yeah.
But just seeing that footage of the Kahivi channel, that was just all time.
Well, and that was the race where all of the naysayers, you know, really said, all right, these unlimited boats aren't fragile.
Right.
They're not scary. You know, they're canoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the kind of in the general paddling community, the acceptance of them, you know, finally came through.
I think that's exactly what we said. We said that was like a pivotal.
Yeah.
That was like a pivotal time. You know, like especially like that race. You know, that was.
What happened to that race? Ran out of money, or?
Yeah, you know, I think it has a lot of the same challenges that you know, just professionalism in outrigger paddling has. You know, like, you know, my feeling is that, you know, outrigger paddling is the surfing lifestyle in a team environment that's intensely family focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, in the Hawaiian or in the Polynesian family, you know, the person who gets the most respect is the elder, not the hero or you know, there's no caricatures, there's none of this, right? So, you know, it's quite different than having like one person who's being sponsored, right? Like when you have a team in a program and that kind of thing. So it's hard to have to show a return on investment in this sport, right? Like there's not a lot of eyeballs that are going to be on it. It's, you know, because it's traditionally the races that we get excited about are the long distance ones. The ones that are good for fans are going to be
friendly,
they're going to be smaller and they're going to be shorter and that kind of thing.
Right.
And then, you know, again, like the passion comes from participating, not necessarily. You know, there's a lot of passion when you're rooting, and certainly we see that, you know, in Tahiti when you watch all the boats that are following. But even there, you know, there's a lot less boats that go out and cross the channel from Ta'a to Bora Bora.
Right.
And it's hard to, you know, for me, it's expensive the way that they tried to do it. The premise behind it was that we were going to create something where people could truly be professionals.
Right.
And, you know, I just don't know if they really had the ability to support professionals. Right? You kind of see stand-up paddling is struggling with that, even though they have really cool events. Mm-hmm. You know, and quite frankly, professional sports are struggling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know.
I was just curious about the Olamau too, because with the visibility we have now to Hawaii Nui and a lot of the races now, I mean, obviously we just did the channel right back front to back in both ways, and I was just wondering if that would have changed the outcome of a race like that, if it would get bigger sponsorship looks, you know, more corporate partners to support a team or a race like that in, you know, through Hawaii, you know, so to speak.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, certainly telling the story, you know, why do you paddle and why does it matter?
Right.
And having that resonate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're honest with yourself, most of the major sponsorships go back to somebody who's passionate about that team
Right.
or that purpose, right? And so, that's what you need to find is you need to find the organization that says, hey, I want to align with the values. And I think that's part of the thing is that was marketed as, hey, this is the best of the best and the elite of the elite. But this sport is a lot more inclusive than the elite of the elite. And that's one of the things you see in Tahiti is there's 200 teams out there. There's 20 that are like crazy sponsored and all of that. But there's like 180 that are doing it for the same reason that we race Catalina.
Some little village got a canoe and they want to race.
Yeah.
That's a really good explanation.
Yeah.
And so like that story is the one that doesn't always get told.
Right.
But that's the one in the villages that they talk about over and over and over again. And and so that's just my own my own little take on it.
That's a great explanation, and I think that's probably the perfect segue. Speaking of villages and what we, making that comparison of those 180 canoe clubs.
All right, Jane, put on the headphones and come on in and get in the camera shot.
I think Julie's more excited about it.
I know.
Thanks. You gonna give her an introduction? Who is this lady?
Good Lord, how's that gonna go? Hey guys.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Okay. All right. So we're going to start actually with you starting paddling. And what year was that?
1980.
1980.
Yeah.
And with Lanakila.
Correct.
Okay. And been a Lanakila ever since.
So I was 10 years old.
Okay.
My sister had begun dating this fellow that started an outrigger canoe club. His name's Al Ching in Redondo Beach. And so my sister took me to a race, and the way that we met was I was sitting on an ama, and Al Ching came over and yelled at this boy for, don't have respect, don't sit on that.
Right.
And then he immediately got yelled at by my sister. Don't you talk to my brother.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
And
So
that's kind of how we got introduced. And then for me it was my father and my mom were divorced. They were kind of split up, and so I would come down and I'd spend summers, but my dad would be traveling with his job, and so I would actually, I was living with my sister Erin and Al, and when they would go to practice, at that time they didn't have that many paddlers at Lanakila, so the men and the women would practice at the same time. And when I go to practice, they started by just kind of leaving me on the rocks, but then they thought, oh, that's not a great idea. So then they put me in the canoe and said, all right, here's how you steer left and you steer right. And
there it is.
Yeah, so
that makes sense. That's why all the kids steer the canoes.
yeah.
It started with you.
Well, and you don't want to leave them on those rocks because they can get themselves in trouble. Leave them on the rocks.
A little bit, yeah.
I love that. I'd never heard that. That's really good to know.
Yeah, so started off by just, hey, we're gonna go make circles in the harbor, and then, all right. So yeah, I remember when I first started paddling, I was young enough, I think I was 10, that I had to wear a life jacket because I think the Coast Guard rules were you had to be 12. And so I started off wearing it, but I negotiated where, okay, how about I just sit on it because I needed to sit up a little bit higher, or put it in my feet so that I can get my feet on it. So yeah, I mean, so
that's cool.
Yeah, people all the time describe to me that, hey, outrigger paddling is just like family. And, my response to them was, well, for some of us, it is family.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so years later, you guys meet.
Yeah.
You guys got married in 90. What year was it?
1997.
7.
Yeah, but we actually met earlier. So we both went to Loyola Marymount University.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I remember that.
And so so I was getting my degree in physics, and
I was failing physics.
yes. And
So it was a tutor type situation? Is that what kind of?
well, sorta.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like chemistry was your
I know.
was your strength.
Yeah, maybe. So no, it started off where her tutor was actually my lab partner,
Oh, I see.
and it's pretty small small department, right? So
3.
yeah, exactly. So Jane ended up getting tutored and I think barely passing the physics class.
Dr. Mebbs told me if I raise my right hand and swear I will never, ever, ever take physics again, he would pass me. I said, no problem.
So she brought over a thank you card gift or thank you card
Because I passed.
to my Lance, my lab partner, and I was in the middle of a take-home final that was 17 pages.
3 days.
Jeez.
And yeah, so we're and that's kind of where we first kind of met.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the next time, and I'm going to be corrected here, but I think the next time we met was at church. My lab partner was he was being confirmed, or
He's becoming Catholic.
he was becoming Catholic, and so we would go as a study break. We would go to the Catholic Mass on Sunday evenings, and that's really kind of where I think that's where we more started hanging out. And then she started doing her homework in the physics department, and
One thing led to another.
Well, no, I wanted it to, but somebody had to tell me that he was really, really busy because he was this coach of this outrigger thing.
Yeah, this is
And-
where we're
love
getting
it.
into.
I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
know. Here we go.
And, he was coaching this outrigger team, and, he would love to date me, but he really just didn't have time. And I was like, well, that's a bummer, but okay. Can I hang out still anyway? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. It's fine. So,
So,
One of
so
these
the
days he's
relationship
gonna have
started
time.
understanding the time commitment that was already being put in
Was
into
set
the
very
club.
clearly up
okay.
front.
Okay.
I had
Yep.
no idea.
Right.
No idea.
That's so funny.
yeah, so yeah, at the time I had a good friend of mine named Cliff Meidel, and he had he decided that he was going to try this flatwater kayaking thing, and so he bought a kayak, and then he bought a second one, and I was the only one that would get up in the morning with him and
Go
do that.
train,
with him.
yeah.
So I would train kayaks in the morning, and then I would go to school, and then afterwards I would either go to outrigger paddling, or if I didn't do that, we would be doing homework, and then I had a ritual where about 10 o'clock at night, we would go to the gym, and any of the problems that I couldn't figure out, I would just work on in my head as I was lifting weights. And Jane thought, all right, well, this is all kind of odd, but it seems like it's a college life type thing. And then I would drop her off and drive home and do it again, and just kind of did that for a couple of years. And pursued the flatwater kayaking dream, and really tried to elevate Lanakila as an outrigger paddling force. We were chasing the guys from Dana Outrigger at that time,
Oh, okay.
and that was kind of our whole focus. Is they were at the top, and that's when they were placing top 5 in Molokai consistently. And so
Wow. And then, so real quick, so I want to turn things over to Jane. So, Jane, did you grow up playing sports?
No, I grew up
Interesting.
I grew up in
Wow,
a ballet
okay.
studio.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I danced ballet through high school.
Okay.
But I'm 5'2" on a good day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so ballerinas at the time, they really wanted like a 5'11", 6 foot long, beautiful arms and legs forever. And it didn't matter. I just wasn't going to be that. So I dance because I love it. It just makes me happy. And when, Josh has a problem and he needs to go like figure it out in the ocean, I would go to my ballet studio and
work. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't tell sweat and tears at the same time.
Yeah.
It works out really good.
Huh.
So-
Interesting.
So can you remember the first time you saw him paddle, like his first race, like what that was like, or
No, but I remember things that were important. Like I remember sitting on the rocks at Lanakila and waiting for practice to finish. Right.
Okay.
So I would drive down and wait on the rocks for practice to finish and watch the sunset. And
Yeah.
the boys would all pull up and we'd talk about where are we going for dinner and drinks and whatever. I remember really clearly the first time I met the Ching household. And what that looked like and what that felt like, and that sense of family and
Yeah.
immediate inclusivity. Races were different than they were now. Right now, they're very you win the party on the beach, but back then it wasn't. Like there wasn't that, and so you'd go to the beach and you'd race hard, and you know, who doesn't want to go spend in their 20s going to go spend every weekend on a different beach,
Right.
Yeah.
laying out in the
Right.
sand and going to an after party, and then
Yeah.
you get up and you do the whole thing the next day. So it was a great lifestyle, but really, truly, like I can remember snippets that were important, and being on the rocks and watching the boys finish, and then, you know, the inclusivity of the Ching household was huge, huge.
When so sitting on the rocks watching everybody finish, is that the time when you kind of notice the let's say the culture of the, like, you know, it's a bunch of guys together, right? They get out of the canoe, they're standing around talking to each other, or, you know, let's say, you know, some clubs, you know, they'll round up and hug and, you know, talk to each other about whatever. I mean, for me, you know, seeing that is kind of what keeps me involved all the time, is the camaraderie and the you know, helping each other out, or, you know, the hard work together, and, you know, win or lose doesn't matter. You get out of the canoe and, you know, you're like, man, it was a good battle and we had fun and that kind of stuff. And then, like you said, it's 100% right. Racing nowadays is parking lot race. I say it all the time. You win it in the parking lot. It's not, there's not, I don't know, it's just it's a weird feeling, right?
Well, you know, what would happen is we would, you know, put the canoes away, and Al would be like, all right, you're all coming to my house. And that would be like, you know, every night.
Right.
And,
Tuesdays and Thursdays was dinner at Aaron's house.
Yeah.
and his wife, my sister, didn't know, but she knew, but, you know, she didn't know how many people were coming
Yeah.
over. But it was always,
Here comes 30 guys, all hungry.
Yep.
sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's, you know, 7 or 8 or whatever. And, you know, Jane got exposed to, you know, the conversation at the table. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it was always,
That's where you learn a lot.
well, and you know, it absolutely amazed her, because there was always enough food. There was, you know, my sister never got upset. She never was like, she was just like, great, more people. There's always more
Yeah.
rice.
Yeah.
There's always.
Aaron's mantra was, you could always make more rice. You can always make more salad.
Yep.
You can never invite somebody after you told them they couldn't come.
Right.
Yeah.
So it never happened. Like, you just, everybody showed up. But like the conversations were, I'm listening to the three of you guys talk, and it makes me giggle, right? Because that's what dinner table conversation at the Ching house was, right? Because Aaron was a
Yeah.
steerswoman, and Al was racing, and the boys were young, but they were still, you know, they were racing too. And so like stroke technique and paddle technique and canoes versus this canoe versus that canoe, and let's go to the videotape and let's watch it in slow-mo and this and that and this and that, right? But like that was dinner every
Yeah.
Tuesday and Thursday, and Mondays and Wednesdays too. But like that's where like the concept of passion for the sport, like that's when I really understood it. Then, and when it was like, it's all the time. It's not like Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's all the time.
yeah.
But everybody was involved in it. And so that was really, I learned a lot just listening and history of it. And it was great. It was great.
Can I say something real quick? So what's interesting is, so, you know, Justin always likes to rag on me because of this love I have for paddling up in the bay. And we definitely had that, right? It was like
They all have
that's-
chips on their shoulders.
No,
Every one of them.
the similar, you know, hey, we just paddled this race, we're going to go to so-and-so's house. Or even if it was, you know, I paddled in the city, it was after practice, we're meeting at this bar. Or it was just very, there was an event, you know, on top of the practice event.
Yep.
And I used to love, and I was young, you know, I was like, in my early years, I loved that because that reminded me of being back home with my family, growing up in Hawaii. And moving here to Southern California, I mean, you guys definitely took me in a sense. And I really appreciated that. But I got to say, Justin, you know, it's always, hey, we're watching football at, you know, like, hey, did you get off the water? Like, hey, when you get off the water, like, come over. We got like chicken katsu and, you know, stuff like that. And so the Castaways community really gives me that. And I don't know, I've never really told you how much I appreciate it.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it's the
hearing you
same.
talk about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
you know,
It's, you know, Julie would be the first one to tell you. It took a little while for her to get kind of used to it. You know, I don't know, when did we get together? Like 8 years ago or so? Sophia's about 6, right? So, when we first got together and she got pregnant with Sophia, she's like, "Where are you going?" Well, I'm pregnant, and with it, I'm like, "Well, I got practice tonight. I got, I'm coaching these crews, and it's 4 days a week right now." And so then, my dad had told me a story not that long after. He goes, "When you were born, he surfed every day, all the time." And he goes, "When you were born, I stopped surfing for like 2 years because they lived in the mountains, and it was too hard for him to leave. My mom with me being a baby, so I'm like, okay, I need to change my schedule a little bit." And so we did. I changed it, and then took a little, not a break, but I was still around, still practicing with him, but just backed away from coaching. Because that's a lot of time. Coaching is a ton of time.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to practice and you race and train and do all that stuff. It's just, it just compiles and it's more and more and more time. And then I was running Newport too, so it was just more and more time. It was like every day, right? I know you guys both know. So, having understood from myself, like, okay, I need to step back for a little bit. I need to change gears, kind of. Backed away from coaching Newport and running Newport, and then we started Castaways because the important thing to us was the community and the feel. I don't care about the racing side of it so much. For me, that wasn't, that was something we did and we had fun doing it, but the barbecues after practicing and sitting around talking story or whatever. Yeah. And so there were a couple phases that like Julie and I went through where it was like, okay, I have all this time commitment. I'm going to back away from that. Now everyone's coming over to the house because they want to sit around and talk about, hey, this is what we did today, this and I wasn't that really engaged, but I was still there for them. And so it's like one of those things like, well, how come everyone comes to the house? Like, that's just the way it goes. I mean, it's just it. So like what Joe was saying, it's the message goes out all the time. Like, hey, if you guys coming off the water, we're barbecuing and whatever, come by the house. No big deal, plenty of food for everybody and whatnot.
I guess I never realized how much I missed that. And like how that you guys mentioned earlier, that's kind of missing in today's world.
Well, and getting back to your question, right? Like, hey, why do you think that a race like Olamau didn't perpetuate?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well,
maybe it's missing that component.
Well, I think they tried to do that component, but they did it in a way that was, really kind of, and that aspect of outrigger paddling. It's why Lana Keela, I can kind of speak to that, has such a strong culture.
Want another beer?
So I'm good.
Okay.
And, again, you guys are kind of embodying that, right? Like that's the passion. And that's really hard to show a return on investment for. So.
Yeah, it's qualitative.
So.
This did this to us.
It did
at
it
the beach
the other day. Yeah. Those non-alcoholics, man. There's always a.
Yes, I'm drinking non-alcoholic beer for everybody who's going to watch this after later.
You and Will.
Right?
Oh, Will too?
Oh yeah,
that makes three of us.
On binges.
That makes three of us.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling Joe, I go, we can't do an episode with Will more than twice a year. Because him and I will sit here and polish off a whole bottle of tequila and drink all this beer and say the craziest shit you've ever heard. And it's just not funny. I mean, for us, it's funny, but...
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah.
Yeesh, that's a lot.
But that's a really good point, and it's something that's part of paddle. It's almost, you can't. It's qualitative, like you can't measure it, right? And yeah, I really cherish that about paddling.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, everybody. I'm cleaning up this mess.
Yeah. There you go. Well, and so. That's the part I think that kind of goes there. There's a lot of training that goes to it. There's a lot of competing, and there's a lot of, of that sort of thing. But most of the people that paddle, 95% of them, they're not trying to win the race.
Right.
They're reveling in the fact that they're participating.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
A good portion of them have aspirations to get there someday.
Yeah.
And and that's part of what's really awesome about it, like most things, right? There's this opportunity for incremental improvement and for pushing yourself and for finding all of that other stuff. But I think what really separates the outrigger lifestyle is, sort of that idea of including everybody and, finding, hey, how can we make somebody that maybe can't make a canoe go, but they can certainly contribute. Mm-hmm. And so, that's a hugely important aspect of, making a conscious choice to be inclusive.
Yeah. Jane, did you ever make the move towards competitive paddling?
Nope.
You know what's funny is I feel like she gave me the same exact facial expression and like tone and everything. Like,
Yeah.
I remember asking you that same question probably like 5-6 years ago, whatever it was, but same thing. Yeah. It's
Julie
so
and I were
interesting.
just giggling in the kitchen. I think
Yeah.
this is my 31st year not paddling.
Jeez.
So I got a string.
So this
Like,
is
I am not
this
about
is
to-
really interesting to me.
to stretch
This is something that I kind of wanted to address. 31 years of not paddling, but being involved,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, from all I've seen is like being team mom, more or less,
Totally.
right? To a bunch of misfits, right, so to speak.
I love my misfit boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, every year there's a new young group of kids coming up, whether it was Danny and Kavika when they were growing up, and then their friends, which was, you know, Micah, Carlson, and
There's lots
lots of them.
It'll go on.
like I can
Well,
go on
on
forever.
even
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
well,
But like all of those boys, and then then all of Garrett's friends and Miles and Keone and Noam and all of Rylan and all of those boys, and now there's new ones coming up, and it's always so much fun to have these young kids around because they're just like puppy dogs. They're so excited. And, you just have to make sure that they have sunscreen and a paddle and a cooler and a home base and,
I definitely think it keeps
Super
you guys
fun.
young, right? I mean, your headspace is there all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and we were really fortunate to have, great leaders and great role models. And so, kind of feel like, it's our time to provide that custody, if you will.
Yeah.
but
And
like,
that I always talk about, the Hawaiian lifestyle is about, the doctrine or the of pay it forward.
yeah.
Right. And, unconditional acceptance of people. And, a lot of the kids come and, they're eager to kind of prove, and it's like, all right, well, here's where we're going to start. We're going to, be extremely respectful to the elders.
Just like that kid from Oceanside
Yeah.
that steers.
Lachlan.
Lachlan.
Yeah, he's got a little work to do.
Yeah, it's funny. Mike and I
Well,
were dying.
Real quick. So what's funny is Jane talking about all the kids, right, that you've seen kind of coming through. I also love hearing stories about Jane talking about the adults. Like when
Sure.
when the guys are gonna do a downwinder, and Jane is, helping carpool.
Yeah, take the van,
men,
pick a
right?
bunch of guys
and
up,
then you
yeah.
got these like big macho guys all like rah downwind, let's go, ha. And then you see Jane like, Josh, the guy with the blue shirt, does he have a PFD? He has a leash, right? And like
team mom.
so I
Yeah.
love about Jane. It's like so she also has that really good judge of character.
Yeah.
too,
She can absolutely pick out who's going to be the
weak link.
Yeah.
Or not the weak link, but somebody who's going to need some attention.
Yeah.
the broken spoke.
Yeah, the broken spoke.
broken spoke. Yeah.
it's usually because y'all are so broke that your stuff, like if you whistle, your stuff will come running because it's so like full of salt water. And so if like anybody who shows up and all of his stuff still has the tags, you're like,
yeah. Oh, no, this
Brad,
is
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know about you.
This guy's got a new shirt on. It's not me on Christmas.
Look at my new shirt. Downwind, let's go.
So all the time commitment to the club, and you guys raised 2 kids, right?
Yep.
And very cool kids, and I know they paddle too.
Yep.
Yeah. So how is the balance of the club and I know I kind of know what the answer is going to be, but I'm gonna try and phrase it a way where I get a different answer. How is the balance between your own personal family and time versus the big family is being the club and the
Well, I think I would say that it has changed over time.
Okay.
Depends
So-
on what ages our kids.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like I can be more involved when my kids are involved, and I can be more hands-on when they're when they're involved. There's when they've got their own activities, and I can kind of sneak out and do things. But for me, I participate sort of the most fully when one or both of them are participating with me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Okay. That's something that we talk about too. It's like Sophia being 6 and then the 2 boys being where they're at. Cameron's 14 now, right? He's semi-verbal autistic. He's full-time job just on his own, more or less. He's the best kid we got because he never complains about anything. And he's so routine because he's autistic. He does everything on his own. He's super good. But, he's around all the time, and we've got to be conscious about that. So, that takes a little bit of time away, too. But, I guess in phases, depending on how old the kids are and how involved they are, changes, what you're doing day to day, right?
Well, I remember when the boys were, when Garrett and Ryland and another kid, Will, were like 9, 10, and 11, and they were like, hey, you know what? We want to start paddling. It's like, okay. So that was perfect because I could bring them to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly doing one practice where we were doing seat racing, and Garrett was sitting in front of me, and Ryland was sitting in front of somebody else in one of the other canoes. And we got done with the piece, and Nathan Shore turns around and goes, "There's no singing during seat races."
In an Australian accent, in a very intimidating, deep Australian accent.
But
Very annoyed.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
but that was well, guess what, Nathan? If you want me to be here, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to change. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And now he's got his own son, and he's bringing him to practice.
Oh, nice.
And there's that kind of thing. But integrating the boys really young is something that was important to me because
And
it was
the girls.
and the girls too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we would bring the girls to the boys' practices too. Well, the other thing that was super interesting about that was when we started bringing the boys to practice, other dads would start to bring their boys to practice. So all of a sudden you'd have like all of these young guys, and the men would be complaining, and they're like, "Hey, they're taking away from what we're doing." And myself and the leadership, starting with Danny, were like, "Look, if you guys don't want to be here with us, then go do your own thing.
Right.
But this is more important than
Yeah.
winning races."
Yeah.
And it created really
look what happened out of it.
well, it created a culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the culture itself was, hey, these kids, because Danny would take them and teach them a lot of the different safety things to the point where they were way safer and pretty quickly more competent than most of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it also created an environment where there was no profanity at practice,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no guys were not allowed to lose their composure
Mm-hmm.
because, hey, we're setting a good example. And so, you really it wasn't the coaches that had to shut it down. It was
Right.
and that's kind of, for the most part, has sustained itself. And, it really is this mentality of like, in Lanakila, you get promoted to the first crew, and then your next promotion is down into one of the other crews to make them
Better.
or competitive.
Mhm.
And the guys wear it as kind of a badge of honor of like, hey, I've got an opportunity to help and make a difference. And
God, I used to get so much shit for that at Newport. I would take the top guys and throw them in all the other boats.
Yeah.
I'd break them up all the time. Like, you're going to go sit with these guys and you're going to make them better.
well,
I got hell for that from people.
so what's interesting is the way Danny does it is he doesn't break up all the guys. Like, he leaves most of the guys together, but he just takes a couple of the guys and puts them in boats. And then now all of a sudden, the boat that Danny's in and the boat that I'm in is keeping up with the team. That's
Right.
And we don't always keep up, but
Yeah.
we're doing a lot better.
You're within reach.
and
Makes practice a little bit better.
well, and then all of a sudden their minds start opening up, and then they get more excited. Okay, what do I need to do to be part of this? And it's not perfect, but it's kind of this mentality of, and it makes it okay when it's those leaders that are like, hey, I'm the one that wants to go do that,
Yeah.
and to be part of that.
Yeah. Not to blow up Blonakila more than it needs to be because it's already such a great club, but you guys definitely have a culture that is very resilient and like timeless in the aspect of the way you do things and the way you talk about things. Hearing multiple Lanakila paddlers talk about it, it's like, okay, everyone's on board. Like, they're, and people who don't fit, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, it's how you treat people.
Sure.
And you mentioned like, hey, the beginning of this, hey, you're really calm and you don't tend to get too frustrated by things. Well, I've had lots of situations, and it turns out that if people come to you and they've got a lot of passion, it doesn't help to be passionate back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better to acknowledge that passion and say, hey, you know what, you're probably worked up for a good reason. Maybe I should listen.
Mm-hmm.
And and the other thing too is that there's a difference between, I love to compete. The outcome to me is rarely as important as just the opportunity to compete, and I revel in that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do when I compete is to walk up to my competition afterwards, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say, "Thank you for kicking my ass."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that, I never worry about the work ethic of the guys that I hang out with, because I know they love to work hard. I only worry about, hey, is our lives going to line up so that we can, have a really good experience? Because, you're mentioning family,
Mm-hmm.
you're mentioning work, you're
Time.
mentioning, there's all kinds of different obligations. The resilience comes from communication, and it comes from, being authentic, so not setting expectations on people, but, being really generally happy to see each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's really the culture that we've created is, hey man, it's fantastic to see you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when I'm going to see you again, but
right.
man, that was,
Yeah.
that
You
was-
have to appreciate that time.
right. And, as we get busier and we have other, things in our lives, that's the kind of, that's the way that we approach it.
Mm-hmm.
And, sure, we'd love to compete at the highest level at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is it not realistic, but if you're always successful, that's not nearly as satisfying. It's way more satisfying chasing
Mm-hmm.
than it is, trying to stay on top.
Yeah.
This is going to sound really weird, but some of my favorite races are the races that they don't win.
Mm-hmm.
Because they come out and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
this
What's
is
that
about to
passion
go
you're talking
down,
about? That
right?
Passion. Yeah.
Like, I just know that he's going to be on the water Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And I best get my grocery list going and gas up the van to Redondo, because this is about to go down. This is not going to happen again. But like, that's what makes this happen, right? If you don't have that passion, if you don't have that drive, if you don't get off the water and be like, even when they win, there's days where he's grumpy about it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a good race, regardless. But I love it when they get beat, because then it's like, turn that fire on and let's go again. And that's what this is about, right? Like, if you're not passionate about it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Joe and I were talking about this, and this is something that always impressed me about Lanakila. I always said if you look at the numbers in Scora, the clubs that are geographically isolated usually have higher numbers of people because there's no other alternative, right? So Newport has 4 or 5 clubs, right? San Diego's got a ton, but Lanakila's always had a really strong number. Dana's usually cycled a really good number.
Marina Del Rey,
yeah. Oceanside too. But what for Lanakila, just because I'm closer to it in the aspect of knowing people that go there, like, you guys get people you guys commute from Dana Point, right? Joel's commuting from down here. Ross used to commute from down here. Chris Cornejo used to commute from down here. Like, you guys, a lot of people that would come in and drive hours in crappy traffic to get up there and then come home.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. How long have you guys lived in Dana Point?
15, 17 years.
How long have you guys lived in South County? Orange County?
That's what she's saying. I think we've been in our house since 2013, but I think we've been down in Dana, or down in Mission Viejo, since 2003.
But like Josh says, on weekends we wear red because it literally is family.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we lived in Ventura,
and the 49ers play on Sunday too.
Right? We wear red. But when we lived in Ventura, we drove down and we were Lanakila. When we were in
Yeah.
Mission Viejo, we drove up and we're Lanakila. It's not
Amazing.
like family; it is family.
Right.
And like I said, Aaron and Al really kind of set the standard, and even like Terry Hole, Malia's mom, really set an example of how to do this and how to raise a family on the beach in a paddling culture. Auntie Rose and Auntie Dar and Auntie Rosemary, Ali Kahanamoku's dad, Uncle Sandy, really set the standard about how do you do it. And we are not doing anything novel or new. We're just watching the people who did it before us.
Yeah, but you guys are maintaining things and understanding ways of doing things that not a lot of clubs do anymore. So where has that been lost?
Well, I can't tell you.
Right. I know that's a baited
Well,
question,
yeah.
but it is very prevalent,
Well, again, we're incredibly fortunate to have the matriarch of the club in Al Ching still present. And, when he shows up, he's every person knows that he's there, but everybody there is super happy to see him, and they make sure that he gets in and he gets back out.
They take care of them.
What's incredible too is, so back to what Josh was talking about, like how we always bounce around canoes. There'd be like 12 canoes on the water. We're just swapping, like musical chairs. And sometimes you'll find yourself in a canoe with Uncle Al steering, right? And he'll still coach, and everyone's just like, yeah, okay, yep, and it's just that energy. It's really powerful, it's really neat. Josh said this to me a while ago. Is like, hey, we celebrate the people that are here, and I truly believe that. Like everybody that is there, and it's like everybody has a role too.
Yeah,
it's a village.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a couple of different things too, right? So like, hey, most clubs, when you show up, whoever gets there first takes the parking that's in the front, and everybody else, has to find parking. So, the worst thing is for the guy who's been on the freeway for an hour and a half or 2 hours trying to get to practice.
Right.
They get to practice. There's no parking.
Yeah, they're already amped up
Already
and bad
super
energy.
late.
Yeah.
The coaches are sitting there with their arms crossed saying, you're late. And that's his first, welcome and this and that. So, I mean, we talk about it, right? It's like, hey, leave the parking right here. When the kids leave the parking in the front for the people who are coming rushing in. Like if you're here early, park a little further away. When, the people show up, Danny is, notorious for, somebody just showed up. All right, get in the canoe, get in my spot, rig up a one man or whatever else.
Yeah.
And it's not, hey, welcome. We're glad you made it, right? Like the first thing you say to somebody is, we're happy you made it, regardless of who they are, right?
Yeah.
And, just little things like that and like being purposeful about that kind of thing makes all the difference in the world. And it's like, hey, that same person is going to try and drive again 2 nights later.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, hey, they were happy to see me.
Yes.
And, oh, by the way, I'll try and be a little bit earlier, right? But we don't have to say any of that.
Yeah.
And so it's little things like that, right? And you go to a race on Saturday, and Danny is constantly adding extra canoes because it's like, oh, this person showed up and this person wants to race and this and this and this and this. And, I can't tell you how many times, like, I get thrown into a short course. I have no idea. And it's just like, hey, get in this boat and go. And it's like, all right.
Just to get people participation, right? Get them in the water. Yeah.
And
let them have a good experience.
Right. And like to me, like, in that mentality, and if you want to participate, we'll find a spot for you. If you don't want to, that's not a problem. And you don't get uptight about the guy who cancels at the last minute. All right, we'll just find somebody else.
Well, and that right there, what Josh just said, basically speaking on like pivoting. And I think as competitors, to kind of bring it back to competition, I think that's what makes Lanakila so great at what we do is, canoe hoolies or something happens, right? We just pivot and we just adapt and boom, okay, not dwell on it. Just, okay, we'll figure it out. We're good.
Yep.
Kind of, we keep it positive, And I also think, and I truly believe that's what makes Danny the champion that he is today, is his ability to just pivot when in the flash of a pan, you know, like, oh, something didn't happen, didn't go his way. All right, sorry, just go this way. You know, it's just, it's unreal. It's contagious.
Yeah, well, when you get into a mentality like that, it makes you feel very powerful, right? Because you're not subject to what, you know, to outside influence, right? Like you're just gonna kind of make it, you know. So and I try and apply that to my life, you know, of like, you know, you know, stay focused, be authentic, and show up and work. You know, you can tell, like, you know, people all the time say, hey, you know, how do you know that person is better than that person? Well, it's like, I can tell if they've done the work. And I know if they've done the work. I can test them if you want me to.
Right.
It's just physics.
But, you know, yeah, that too.
So what does the future look like for you guys in paddling? And, you know, what is the short term? What do you got going on short term?
Well, so for me, 2023 was about family, about getting my son from being in college to working. So, and I was living in St. Paul, Minnesota, and working for the company that I work for, getting our daughter set. And then 2024 is actually about a goal that Jane's had for 15 years, something like that. So her and her best friend are going to do the Camino de Compostela pilgrimage. It's a 500-mile walk that starts in the Pyrenees across, so starts in France and then goes through Spain. And she's not going to stop at Compostela. She's going to keep going to Portugal so that she can have some port wine.
There you go.
All the way to Finisterre.
So what's the overall mileage?
It's 500 miles.
Okay, total.
So we think that 15 miles a day for 5.5 weeks is reasonable. So yeah.
So that's for me. That's
So
going to be.
that's why you're.
That's going to be
until June. You were saying.
Yeah, that's going to be June and July for
So
me.
yeah,
Right.
We
So
think we're going to leave about June 2nd.
Okay.
Which will finish us first or second week of July, and then hopefully do a little bit, go down and see Barcelona, some other things.
Yeah. So, you know, again, that's going to be what. So the future is going to be prioritizing that. Where paddling kind of fits in around that, we'll see. You know, the other thing too is that I'm a big believer in like creating something that other people can carry forward, and then getting out of the way and letting them carry it. You know, because as long as I'm there and doing the carrying,
Right.
it's going to be hard for. And so, you know, I really believe in, you know, the younger generation that's coming up. You know, you asked me a little bit about Scora and being race director. You know, the fundamental reason that I did that is I felt like it was our turn. You know, somebody had to kind of step in, and I kind of stepped into a time that was a little bit turbulent, and you know, there was a lot of passion.
Oh yeah.
And my goal was to just really try and get things to calm down a little bit, to get people to feel, you know, good. I thought I was only doing it for 2 years.
Right.
The pandemic got in the middle of it and kind of carried it.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there's lots and lots of good people. I'm incredibly encouraged. We talked a little bit about Will Reichenstein and Kelly Schwartz, but there's just so many people who are part of this organization, and you know, I love what Ty's doing down in San Diego. I love what Lindsay's doing up in Marina Del Rey. I love what Corey Simpson and the whole group's doing up in Santa Barbara. And so, you know, for me, the celebrating what's going on and being, you know, somebody that can kind of help step in when I need to. But for the most part, you know, and then, you know, Joe and I have a really special group of guys that we like to train with. And, you know, we had a really good race in Catalina.
Yeah, you guys did.
And but we did it, we did it the Lanakila way, right?
Mhm.
We had some young guys, we had some new guys, we had and it just, if we can continue to create experiences like that going forward, and it doesn't have to be every race, it doesn't even have to be every season, but
Right.
it creates this goal, and it creates this hunger of like, you know what, I want to be prepared the next time that opportunity comes up.
Sure.
And that's really, I think, the moral here is like, hey, why do we do what we do, and why do we train? Well, every once in a while there's these opportunities to do something great.
Mm-hmm.
And that creating a culture or a whole bunch of people that are excited about that can kind of come together and can do something like that periodically, I think is really what I get passionate about. And that's what so outrigger paddling for me will be figuring out how to do that for more people in more situations.
Mm-hmm.
And this summer I did it for the group going to Samoa. I did it in Catalina, and I did it again when we went to Tahiti.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to beat what happened in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look at it as like, all right, how do I create more opportunities where people can kind of step into and achieve at a really high level, whether I'm personally in the boat or just create or just being that support structure.
Yeah.
And ideally bring along more people that can do what I do,
Yeah.
so that we can kind of multiply that.
Yep. Perpetuate it, add depth
Yeah.
and longevity.
Well, we're going to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, you guys have been good at it.
well, but it, again, the opportunity to talk on this podcast is wonderful because, it's not a person. It's somebody like me that's relying on my wife, my whole family, my support structure.
Yeah.
And, the characteristics of me and the guys that I hang out with is that we love to work hard.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to outwork us.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to do crazy things, but we're also, families first. We're compassionate. We want
But
to.
we also like to hang out together. Like it's
Yeah.
not just like
Yeah,
we
you
like
guys
to work
generally
hard
all
together.
like each other.
We generally all like each
Yeah.
other. The wives like each other.
Yeah.
The girlfriends like each other. The kids have grown up together and hang out together. So, there's practice, and they work hard, and they work really hard. And Julie and I were giggling in the kitchen for a long time, like hours and hours.
Yeah.
But it's also like, there's going to be a workout. Okay, well, cool. So I'm going to call the wives and be like, okay, guys are going out. Let's head up the strand, right? So we'll put the kids in the strollers and on the scooters and on bikes, and we'll all head up the strand for, an hour and back and whatever, and go hang out at somebody's house or, go catch a drink or let the kids run amok. And then everybody has lunch and hangs out. And so, again, the guys are a big part of it, but so are the wives and the families.
Yeah, that's
And
100%.
That's what makes, I think, what we do a lot more successful is that
And sustainable.
Yeah.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
because we all like
That's
to
kind
hang
of
out.
part of my
together.
big question is the sustainability, right? Of all that time and then management with your own family and everything else. I mean, that seems really hard to navigate, but the way you put it is like, I totally get it. You're occupying your time while you're occupying your time, and it's not like somebody's just sitting at home waiting for someone to come back home, right? It's a little bit different.
That's the trick, right? So it's not somebody sitting around waiting,
Right.
But it's like, hey, everybody's doing something that's contributing to
Well, and sometimes it's just helping each other out. Like, hey, I need to go do this. No worries. I'm going to be up there. Leave the kids with me. We'll go do something fun. Pick them up later. They all help me. I help them. And again, that's just we were shown it, and I'm watching Kelly do it on the beach with her kids, and I'm watching Malia do it now with Little Miss Aggie, and I'm watching Will and Bobby do it, and I'm watching Danny and Leah do it, and it just makes my heart happy to watch them kind of embracing that whole thing, and I can't wait to see what that next generation of little kids is going to be, because they're going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get your perspective on that, because for us as guys, communicate that to our partners, right, and our wives or whatever, especially these newly married guys, you know, they got a lot of explaining to do because it's not something that, like, I have a hard time explaining it to anybody, right? So hopefully all these young ladies listen to this podcast and understand what it is.
Well, Erin was really good about that. I mean, she was really good. I'd be super frustrated because, you know, I had a plan for dinner and this and that and this and that, and there was a plan.
Yeah.
And we're late.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Erin used to tell me really clearly and often, you can be mad at the situation. You may not be mad at Josh.
I see.
Because chances are that he is not out there on the water going, hey, if we hold out here for another 10 minutes, it's really going to piss off Jane.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not
definitely
what's
not what happens.
You don't know who came late. You don't know if there was a
Yeah.
hoolie. You don't know what happened.
Yeah.
You don't know. And so you can be frustrated. That's 100% allowed. And I try and teach that to the new wives too. And say, hey, look, you can't plan on practice being over at 8 o'clock. They're going to want it to be over at 8 o'clock, but it's probably going to be 8:30. And if you plan on it being really over at 7:45 when they tell you 8 and we all know it's going to be 8:30, that's a you problem.
Yeah, so
that's hard.
With Julie specifically, when I got her in a canoe, you know, and I said, this is what, you know, so as she saw it, like, oh, now I understand what goes. Now I know why. Like, if you say you're going to be home at 6:30 and you're not home until 8:30, I understand. Like, things happen. And it's not because I don't want to be home, just because, you know, somebody's car, the battery might have, you know, we got to fix that. Or, you know, you have problems with the canoe getting it back on the beach and we got to address that or whatever it might be. There's so much involved, right? And so, I mean, it's like I said, it's hard to explain because when it happens all the time, then it's like, whoa, what's really going on down there at the beach? Are you guys just sitting around drinking beer for 2 hours after? I'm like, well, sometimes we do that too, but
sometimes there's that too.
Sometimes there's that too, but very cool.
And there's different stages too, right? So there's times where you're spending a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
And there's times where, hey, you know what? The schedule dictates that I can be here from this time to this time. Drop me off. I'm running to the car.
Yeah, I got something to do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's the part that they don't tell you is that, hey, you're going to go through different times in your life where you're more available and you're less available.
Yeah.
Paddling can be more important than it can be less.
Yeah.
And
well, coaching, I think for me too, you know, when I was coaching Newport and running the club, it's like I always made sure I was the last one to leave the beach just to make sure everyone was gone, everyone was safe, all the equipment's put away the right way, make sure everything's washed down right. I was first one there and last one off the beach. Every time we practiced, it was 6 hours.
Right.
You know? And so, I mean, it was just the way it went. But then, you know, it's like in my head, because I'm hard-headed, I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going to have a baby. So I probably should stop doing this and go home and take some time to do the right thing, you know? So it's just one of those things. Like, for me, it was, you know, I mean, Julie's had to hit me over the head with a brick multiple times in my life. And it won't be the last time. It's going to happen again.
well, the other thing, too, is like, you know, you're extremely hands-on. And I've been that guy. You got to learn how to, you know, people always talk about delegating.
Yeah.
Right? But it's more than just delegating. It's like you got to find people who these different things are important to them, and then you've got to enable them and empower them. And that leadership is something that's hard to learn, right? You know, especially in the heat of the moment, and people are cold, and you know, seasons get long, and this and that, and so. You know, that's really my role is to be able to kind of be that sounding board for whoever's standing up trying to be that leader.
Right.
And saying, hey, this is what you're doing well. This is maybe you didn't approach saying it, you know, exactly right here. And so, but like that's kind of where I'm at is, you know, really try and I'm excited about what I'm seeing out of that next generation, the leadership. And there's a generation that's just about ready to come back.
Yep.
You know, so
I can't wait. Let's go, boys. Let's go. Come back.
Well, but you know, it'll be interesting when they come back because they're going to have their own ideas and they're going to say, "Hey, you know, we know how we're gonna transform this thing and we're going to make it better and this and that." And there's going to have to be some humility on our part.
Yeah.
And so those are all really, really neat challenges.
Yeah.
And you know, so that'll be and on the girls' side too.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, and your guys, I mean, you know, it's the blessing of being part of the club and being get involved like you guys are. But you know, the next 30 years is going to be up to you guys to push it down on these young guys and get them find the next, you know, the next Josh and the next Danny and the next captains to, you know, push the next guys through, you know?
Well, yeah. And the nice thing is, I think, you know, there's already candidates for that in the pipeline.
Mhm, yeah.
And they're both, you know, guys who are coming back
Mm-hmm.
and guys who are coming up, and girls this kind of the same way. And,
Yeah.
you know, the neat thing is to say, all right, you know, let's get that going at a number of different clubs so that they kind of have that strength and they have that you know, the ability to grow. And you know, that's why, to me, talking to the small clubs and listening,
Yeah.
and saying, all right, what are your challenges? How do we
fix it? Or right. How can we help fix it? Yep.
right? And you know, there's a lot of resources that are available
Uh-huh.
if we communicate, but sometimes people, you know, and so, but you know, that's I'm just one voice and one person.
Yeah, well, you're a very important voice and a very important person. Yeah.
So we'll see. But well, there's a lot of good, like I said, there's a lot of good people in this organization.
Oh, for sure. I'm not downplaying anybody else, but I would definitely say that, you know, as somebody that is is an international representative of what we should be, you're a perfect guy for it. And I'm really glad, like, on the international stage, you're there doing stuff. People see you doing it, and it's like, you know, it's definitely the right perception, you know, and that's important.
Well, and it's an honor to be able to do that. I can't say that I'll always be able to be that person, but you know, I know my nephew Danny does a pretty good job when he's on an international stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, you know, that's something I take a lot of pride in.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, all of the people, all the kids that we've touched on both sides, even what he does, you know, with all the juniors that come through there and how excited they are.
Yeah.
Kaimana's probably going to make the men's open team in about 10 years.
Right?
I don't think it'll take 10 years.
Yeah,
She'll
pretty
be
impressive.
steering the men's open team watch.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how many of how old is she now? 8?
Yeah, 10
Yeah,
years,
she's-
18, yeah.
Yeah.
She's
7 or
8.
8.
She's either 7 or 8.
Yes. She's 8 or 10 months older than Sophia, so probably 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7 years old. She's up at 4:30 going to outrigger practice.
Right.
Was it Tuesday?
Because
Thursday
she
mornings?
asked to. Cause
Maybe
like,
seven
can I go?
years.
Yeah.
And it's like, girlfriend, go back to bed.
Yeah.
You know, Kay and I are like, no.
Yeah.
But you know, even that is kind of the testament of, like, you know, we're not forcing these kids to work hard. They wanna.
Yeah.
They
Providing the setting.
they want to be part. They feel like they're missing out if they're not doing
Right,
something.
yeah,
And,
right.
and this mentality of, like, hey, I start before the sun comes up, and I, you know,
Such a level of discipline, like an 8-year-old or 7-year-old would never.
well, it's not
I
discipline.
don't know if it's discipline right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
That's super fun. That's something I want to be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
part of.
Yeah.
And that's how it is with all the kids, right? Like, hey, you know, that's I don't want to miss out. That fear of
It's a
missing
get
out.
to, not a have to.
Right.
Like I get to go do it.
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
see.
to go do it. It's
And-
totally different.
And if you can create that mentality, and then you can create that mentality for the practices that you have,
Yeah.
and people, you know, Lana Keela doesn't ask that many guys and girls to come to practice, right?
Right.
Like, they just keep showing up. And so you create an environment. Like I said, people feel like they're welcome. They
Yeah.
feel like they're a part of something. And that's
Yeah.
And I think that's probably describes the outrigger lifestyle. I think that's why it's so intoxicating for so many people.
Yeah.
And again, if you go back and you look at it, businesses have a hard time, like, monetizing that,
Yep.
right? And so they all understand it, and they all want to associate their companies with it, but it's hard for them to monetize it. And I think they're doing the wrong things.
Yeah.
Like, they should be focusing more on, you know, like the human resources side of this thing of, hey, people who, you know, think like this and exercise like this are healthier and they're more productive,
Motivated and yeah.
right? And so, and I think there's some organizations that we got to find the companies that are forward looking, that kind of recognize that, and then partner with them,
Sports basement.
and then was that an advertisement?
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost said that, and I was like, "No, don't say it. Don't say it."
So,
It's a shameless plug is what they call it.
yeah. Well, and so again, those are the opportunities. I can talk a little bit about my experience in the next one with Toyota, and why did they partner?
Yeah.
And
I would like to unpack that with you a little bit, especially I think you're one of the only successful guys that I've seen that's been able to partner with a bigger corporation and in joint with what you guys do. I know everybody talks about it. We talk about, corporate fundraisers and let's get all these people on board or whatever. It never, ever happens, but we'll save that. We've been 2 hours now.
all right,
So we'll save that for the next one.
That's a long run for Mike and
I know. For somebody who doesn't like talking on doing this, right?
Right.
No, I just have to sincerely thank you. I mean, this has been a blessing and an honor to talk to you and hear stories and get your perspective. And same with you, Jane. Thank you so much. And man, it's very, very thankful that you guys came up to do this.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, of course.
Aloha.
We'll do it. We'll do another one.
We'll let's get out there tomorrow and go cheer on those guys.
I got one quick funny
Yep.
story for
Good.
Jane. So you're going to go into Spain. My cousin Chris, who lives in Samoa, who is a monster. He played football for San Jose State. He was all whack, and he had bad knees, so he didn't get drafted in the NFL. But he ended up going to play NFL Europe, and he played for Barcelona at the whatever year that was, 90 or maybe 2000, somewhere around there. Anyways, he goes, man, it's great over here. I go, yeah, you love it? You having a good time? He goes, yeah. You know the only problem is the bathrooms or stalls are really small, and he's a really big guy. So he goes, we would go to the restroom, and I would have to if I have to do like number 2, I have to open the door and sit sideways and maneuver myself in. That's every bathroom in Spain. He goes, none of the linemen could fit in the bathrooms over there.
I'm going to be in Spain going to the bathroom just laughing. I'm just going to be hearing your story in my head.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Justin. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you guys again. And, man, you're always welcome. And thank you guys.
Thanks
Aloha.
for having us.
Right on.
Having us.
Yeah.